Hello and welcome to Fund to Money. Here we will discuss some of the most important things that you need to keep in mind when you are taking an educational loan. So we are talking about interest rates, things like collateral requirement, the term of the educational loan, co-borrower requirements, the coverage. So you get the drift, don't you? So this is not the first time we are covering educational loan in this channel. There are other discussions, you can check them out, but we thought it's time for another discussion on education loan, a little more descriptive. You can check out our other discussions in our playlists, whose links are given in the description section and as well as in the cards and in the end screen. So you can check them out, and as well as the playlist, besides of course the other playlists on various personal finance topics. So in the next section we are going to discuss some of the most important things that you need to keep in mind when you are going for an education loan or a study loan or a student loan, but the idea is a loan that is helping you fund or finance your higher education. You basically have saved some money, and it's obviously it's not going to cover your education cost, and this is something which is eventually going to give you a higher income or an income to begin with, and this is the reason why you're taking up the loan. And you obviously from the income that you're going to earn in the future, you're going to repay the education loan. So we'll split for a break. Before we split for a break, we would request you to subscribe to our channel and get connected with us on all leading social media networks. So we'll be back shortly. Don't go away. Welcome back. Welcome to Fund to Money. We are discussing some of the most important things that you need to keep in mind when you are going for an education loan, study loan or a student loan. Depends on the nomenclature you want to use. Basically a loan that's going to help you finance your higher education, and we are basically looking at education that's going to help you generate either some kind of income or higher income than what you're drawing at the moment. So let's take important points one by one. Number one, of course, you will need to know the amount of education loan you need. So what is the education loan amount that's required? So you've saved some money, and you're getting an idea of the educational expense, so the gap is going to be filled by education loan. So that's obvious, but what you need to do very carefully is to figure out what are the various expenses that you want the education loan to cover. Is it going to be just tuition expenses, or there are going to be hostel fees, or there are going to be device costs like say a tablet or a laptop? Would you have to travel around? Would that cost get covered? For studies you have to travel around. So these are some of the things that you'll have to keep in mind. The cost estimate that you have to make has to be fairly accurate, because that will give you a sense of the education loan amount. So that's number one. So the second part, the second aspect, is the most important aspect, and it's also a very obvious aspect, but there are things that you need to keep in mind. What is this aspect? This is the interest rate, right? So for domestic studies in India, you are typically going to get loan up to a certain amount, so maybe up to 20 to 30 lakhs, typically up to 20 lakhs. For 30 lakhs would typically be for more prestigious institutions like IIT, IIMs. For studies abroad, it can probably go up to 80 lakhs to 1 crore, but it also depends on the institution. Typically public sector banks are going to provide loans to you at a lower interest rate than private banks, but for public sector banks the maximum limit is going to be lower, and for private banks it's going to be higher. So this is something that you need to keep in mind. You might get concessional rates depending on if there are some special schemes, special institutions, special courses. Vocational and non-vocational might have a separate treatment in terms of interest rates. If you're meritorious, you might get a concessional rate. You need to check that out. If you're a woman candidate or a female candidate, then you might just get a lower rate of of interest. There could be special schemes in your state or in the bank or in the financial institutions. Typically, private banks and financial institutions are going to charge you higher amounts in terms of interest rates, but they are likely to provide higher loan amounts as well. So the other important thing is the term. So the term, you'll have to see for how long your course is, and the loan term has to match. It can go up all the way up to 15 years. Now there are going to be other costs apart from interest rate. Interest rate is not the only cost. You can have a processing charge. Typically it will be 1.0 to 2.5% of the loan amount. There could be a prepayment penalty. You want to prepay the loan you're starting to earn, and you want to prepay the loan quickly. There could be a penalty for it. There could be late EMI payment charge, so you need to keep all this in mind. So these are going to be the costs that you need to keep in mind. Just not the interest rate cost, but these other costs as well. Now equally important is going to be your things like a moratorium and collateral requirements here, because they are actually, in other words, they are also adding to the burden. So collateral requirements would typically be for higher ticket loans. So as the amount gets higher, the institution will want some comfort. So there could be a financial asset like a life insurance policy of a parent, or if you're earning, you have been earning, or you have made some savings, that could be the requirement. It could be anything else. The idea is to have something as valuable as collateral. That's one part of it. The other is co-borrower requirements. You might for comfort the lending institution might want your parent or your relative to become a co-borrower with that person obviously needs to have a good credit score. Then of course moratorium, as we are mentioning, we talked about collateral and moratorium requirement. Now, moratorium is also important because this is the period till which you don't have to repay the loan. So typically 1 year after you finish the course, or within 6 months of at least 6 months till about 6 months of you're starting a job. So you need to figure out how quickly can you get a job, and at what point onwards you can service the loan. Now if you think there's going to be a struggle finding a job, or it typically takes a little bit of time, then of course you have to look for easier conditions. Now if there's going to be enormous amount of struggle, you better not take a loan, because you have to service the loan, right? So these are some very important things that you need to keep in mind. And as we mentioned, you need to figure out what does the loan cover, what are the items, and what are the courses does it cover. Does it cover the course that you're wanting finance for? Because if you have not checked it out, you might go through the loan process and suddenly you might get stuck. So the course and the items are covered. So there are expenses. If there are major expenses, the loan should be covering all of them. Otherwise you'll have to do it from your pocket. So apart from these factors, you need to keep in mind how much time does the loan processing takes. Now this is a supremely important factor as far as education loan is concerned, because you will get an admission offer and within a certain time you have to make a payment. So you have to work backwards from the time requirement. So you have to make a very accurate estimate on when you need the money, and you need to work backwards. And typically educational loans take a little bit of time, because lending institution has to understand the course and the institution where you're going to. So if it's abroad, the homework might just be a little bit more, especially if it is not an institution where the lender has already given education loans for, or the courses. So that's why this homework of courses, items coverage is very important, because it can add to the processing time. Unlike some of the other loans, this is a time bound thing for which you're seeking a loan. So therefore this homework is so very important. So Needless to say, you have to keep your papers ready, because if you don't keep your papers ready, again the processing time is going to be more, and you might have a difficult time managing the situation. And last but not the least, you can look for pre-approval of education loan. That also happens pretty much like home loan pre-approval, and because it's these things take time, therefore if you take a loan pre-approval, it's almost like a credit line you have. It's almost like a credit card that you have, if you will, then it's only a question of the institution and the course, and then you can get the funds and be on with your journey towards a great future. So these are some of the very important things that you need to keep in mind when you're going for an education loan. We sincerely hope you found this useful. If you've liked it, hit the like button and share it with others. Don't forget to check out our other educational loan videos in English and Hindi. Check out the playlist, and of course many other playlists and videos that are there in the channel, all just to help you. If you like the video, hit the like button and share it with others. Get connected with us on all leading social media networks. Till the next time, take very good care of yourself, and goodbye.